Welcome to the Young, Dumb, and in Love podcast, where we talk about all things marriage.
Our goal is to help equip you to have a marriage that is better than you have ever imagined by sharing real-life experiences, getting into the nitty-gritty, and sharing practical ways you can start today. Let's dive in.
You ever known one of those people who, when they're talking to you and they're right in front of your face and all of a sudden you're just like, oh my gosh, their breath is so bad. And you're just trying not to be mean, but you're like, and all you can think about is the breath. You have no idea what they're saying.
Yes.
Well,
sometimes it's you.
you randomly brought that up to me the other day, or it was a couple of weeks ago, right?
It's been like a month.
And
it's been at least like a month.
It's been a while.
Or two.
Yeah. And you're like, old man babe, breath. You have like old man breath.
I'm like, sorry if you're an old man. It's
I'm
not
like,
meant to be offensive.
No, it's just like the term. But you're like, I was like, no way I have that bad breath. And I couldn't smell it, but you could. You
usually can't smell your own breath.
I went down a deep, dark path. And
deep
just
dark path? I don't know if it's deep dark. I mean, I think maybe a deep path.
I started searching everywhere, how to not allow this to happen in your life. Because I brush my teeth, I floss, I do all the things. And I floss every single day since that day.
And you brush once a day.
Yeah, at night. But listen.
Okay, we're listening.
I went down this path.
Okay.
Ended up buying this stuff.
Yep.
Ashwagandha, the oil pulling, and I was like, well, it's on all over the place. People are raving about it, so I'm gonna try it. Buy this stuff, start using it, literally like in a day, like one day.
Well, you were so funny when you first started using it because you were like, oh my gosh, look at this. And you were like scraping things off.
Oh, yeah. And then, it came with the tongue scraper.
Big chunk just came out. Like,
literally.
It was a
lot.
Journey.
The tongue scraper, though, is life-changing.
I can't use that thing.
I used it and so much gross stuff. I was like, oh my God, what is in my mouth? What is happening? So I am a tongue scraping ashwagandha.
Does it have ashwagandha in it?
It has ashwagandha in it, yeah.
So
oil pulling,
coconut
Swisher, coconut oil.
Pulling?
I mean, it pulls. My teeth are whiter.
We're not doctors or dentists, but...
Yeah, I don't know, but my teeth are whiter.
But they are.
My breath smells better.
They're almost whiter than mine.
I know. They're looking good. And I am...
Coffee, probably.
Yeah, you drink a lot of coffee. But it has been absolutely amazing. And now, when I go to kiss you, I'm not scared that you're gonna be like, you have a bad breath.
Yeah, it was bad. Something I think was dead back in there.
So, I mean,
food died.
When I scraped my tongue, I was like, something for sure
and
died.
I was worried, what if it's always like this? I can't do that.
Oh my gosh, I know. It was so bad.
Anyway, not to be dramatic.
So husbands, if your wife doesn't want to kiss you,
get this stuff.
Your breath will probably smell so much better.
Smell,
yes, did I say sell?
Yeah, it might smell better too.
So much better, and she won't be able to take her hands off of you. Just saying.
It's all about the bad breath.
Yep. It's all about the bad breath.
All right. Well, I'm glad your breath doesn't stink anymore.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of was just telling you about this episode being, I feel like it's a little bit of an ADHD episode.
Yes.
Maybe. So if you're a little neurospicy like me.
Neurospicy.
You might be able to follow this conversation really well. And if not, you might be like, wow, that felt like, I always say this, my brain feels like a pinball machine. And you know how when you're playing pinball, I got to put this down because I need my hands. I'm realizing way too much. When you're playing pinball, and the ball just goes ding, 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 back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And then eventually you make it to where it needs to be. That's what my brain feels like a lot of the time. So that's just what it is. But I've been having this thought this week. And then there's more thoughts, but this is just a thought.
I'm here for it.
If I'm thinking it, maybe other people are too, right?
I'm here for it.
Do you ever feel like it's just too much?
Yeah.
Too much, for everything.
Yes.
All the time. Not knowing where to start, what to do, who to listen to, do this, use that, read this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, this is definitely your brain because I feel like this is something you say every single day.
Okay. It's just too much.
Yep.
And what I mean, it's just sometimes you're like, okay, I really want to do this, right? So then you, you did, go down the rabbit hole per se of I want to figure out how to build a system for this business or something. I don't know. We'll just use a random, like, I want to be able to do this. But then you start researching all these different ones. And then there's all these different opinions. And this one's better. This one's worse. This one will do this. This one will do that. And then you know what happens? I just don't do it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, this is just too much.
Yep.
So then I started thinking, so this is...
I'm ready for it.
It's like to
if you want to know what it's like to be married to her and have the conversations, this is it right here.
So then I started thinking, okay, that's how it feels like in a lot of things for me, like basically everything. But in marriage too, I feel like sometimes we're like, it's just too much. Like, what should I do? What should I read? Where should I go? Who should I trust? What's right? What's wrong? What's marriage supposed to be like? And then we're fed all these like super ridiculous lies, like either by culture or Hollywood or social media or whatever it is, that marriage should look like this. So then we chase that, and the marriage should look like this, and you should be doing that. And then you're just like, it's just too much. I'm just not going to do anything.
Yeah. Yep. That's so real.
You know, and so I think, you know, because I've been thinking a lot about like, okay, like the whole heart behind the podcast and behind us like having like talking about marriage and being super open and sharing with people is because we want marriages like to thrive. Yeah. And we want people to feel like they can, you know, like live their best life with their spouse. Like that they don't feel like they're both going different directions, and that they can come and have like this, you know, marriage that's centered on God and family and values and fun. But sometimes it just feels like, oh, like it's just so much. Like, how do you really talk about it? You know? So I don't know that.
No, that's so great, because what you're saying is there's no one way to do things. Everybody has opinions. Everyone has the way that they live their lives. And as you seek out to have a better marriage, a lot of times it's going to be give and take from everything that you learn. So you're going to take bits and pieces from every article you read, every podcast you listen to. You're going to be able to take bits and pieces from all of those and apply them to your life. And there is no, this is the way, right? Mandalorian little.
I mean, except for the way is the Lord.
Yeah, the Lord, obviously.
Yes,
but
like
but
one
what
way
I mean,
to do your marriage or like whatever. Yeah.
What I'm just talking about, like the ins and outs of things that you deal with every single day. And so the thing is like as you discover and as you're searching, it can be super overwhelming because opinions are so vast, right? Yes. And so if we can just learn how to capture the things that will actually make a difference in our marriage, and that's going to work for our marriage, that's going to be way more effective than anything. Because what works for, you know, Benny down the street isn't going to work for us here in our house, because they have a totally different lifestyle, they have different types of kids, where we have our life. So we have to go, okay, everything we learn, we have to look at it and say, does this work for our family? Yeah. And then we choose to apply it to our family.
Yeah. Well, now, I mean, this wasn't in my notes, but see, this is kind of what I was thinking would happen is, you know, when you're like watching something or listening to something and you're just like, this is trash. Like, this is trash. Like, I should not, like, you kind of have to decide, you know, maybe you'll hear something you're like, I can totally disregard that, but you have to really protect what you're allowing to speak into your mind. Yeah. And when you are looking for like sound advice or whatever, because like you could Google anything. For sure. Literally anything.
Anything.
But the stuff that comes up isn't most of the time, I would say it's not actually true. Yeah. Like, so you have to be careful. Yep. So I think about like, check the fruit. You know what I mean? Like, if you're looking to like improve your marriage and you're like, okay, and I'm not like saying this to like be like, hey, just listen to our podcast. But like, okay, who has a great marriage that you'd be like, wow, you know what? They have good fruit. Like, you can tell that their kids are, you know, contributing to society. They have great kids. Their finances are going well. Not always as everyone, you know, but what are they kind to each other? Are they loving? Are they, you know, faithful to each other? And it's like, okay, you know what? Maybe that's like someone I can listen to or whatever. But then you might see someone who like, you know, isn't. And it's like,
might be pretty on the outside,
you know,
but
might be like a little bit of a red flag. Like, just be very careful, you know, and like listening to what has like aligns with your values. I'm not saying you can't like whatever, listen to whatever you feel like you want to, but just knowing like, does this align with my values? Because I know for me, the hardest part about this is like, you know, when you don't really know something and you start listening to people, but you're like, gosh, that just doesn't really align. Even if it's good information or a good, you know, idea, you're like, that actually doesn't sit well or align with me, or I couldn't actually see myself doing that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And you're like trying to fit yourself into something that what doesn't work for you.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah, and that's what you said too. Finding those people that you go, wow, I really love their marriage, and I really want to see that. And so, like for us, when we were super young, we found a couple like that was in our life, and they invited us into their home, and they asked us the tough questions, and helped us really think through. They even told us like, hey, we don't want you to have our marriage. We want you to have the best version of your marriage. Yeah. But here are some foundational things that you can put in place that are going to help you have a successful marriage. And so it was fun to watch and be a part of those conversations. And it was monumental for us to have those people in our lives for that season, because it really laid a strong foundation for us to be able to move forward. And life changes, things change, but we always have something to fall back on. Yeah. And it's because of those people in our lives that we were able to go, wow, like these are the values and these are the things that we want to live by.
Yeah. Well, I think in as much as you can learn from people the way you want to be, you also can learn so much from people that you don't want to be like.
Yeah. So true.
Not to be rude, but you're like,
so true.
You might see like a marriage or something that struggles. Like, let's just say, for example, and this is not our situation, but maybe you're thinking of like your own family or your own parents or something. And you're like, you know what? I love them, but like, that's not how I want my marriage to be,
for sure.
Or whatever that looks like, or a couple that, you can also learn a lot from that too.
Yeah. That's so true.
Anyway, that was like a random thought.
I always, as a youth pastor, I'd always tell the kids, I would always tell them, hey, like you have examples in front of you to learn from. Yeah. Don't make the same mistake that maybe your older sibling did or your best friend did. Like you saw what happened, you saw the consequence, you saw the outcome. Yes. So why would you do that to yourself? Yeah. And so that's good to have a mind to be able to see other marriages and situations and go, I don't want that for me, but I do want that for me, and really pull those out.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you were just gone.
Yes, I was.
Tell me about it.
Wow. It was actually really cool. I got to go hang out at the lake for a couple days with a bunch of guys.
It was like a total guys.
It was 100% guys trip. Just tons of boating and surfing and peeing and pooping outside. I mean, just all the things.
I'm so happy for you.
It's just,
and happy for me because now I literally I will. Like, you can go do that. I love that journey for you because I am the farthest thing from
it was really cool
wanting to do that. But I love that for you.
The thing that's really cool about these kind of things is, as a guy, especially a guy who lives in a house with nothing but girls. And so there is a lot of estrogen in this house. And it's just nice to be able to go sit down with guys. And it's actually one of those things that I was thinking about this week is it's so important for especially a husband and a man who's, in his 30s. It's so important for us to have community with other guys. And it's very easy to not have any community because we're so busy with our life, with our wife and our kids and our family, and all the responsibilities that we have. Yeah. And so most guys my age and above actually lose so many friends, or they don't have any friends at all just because of their situations in their life, right? And so I want to make sure that I always put value on being around other guys, having good conversations, just building up that testosterone so I can stay healthy, just stuff like that.
Sometimes he says stuff and I'm like, okay, whatever.
Testosterone is good for the man. Also, totally. It's just great. But it's important because we're able to, get away and have some raw, conversations that make you go, okay, I'm not the only one that struggles in this area. Yeah. And now we can bounce ideas off each other and push each other forward and encourage one another. And like, there's just certain conversations that would be a lot harder for me to have with my wife. And when I have it with another guy, it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, phew, like someone who understands how I feel on the inside can speak into that. And it's just super healthy. So I was grateful to be able to go on a trip like this.
Yeah. No, I think, when I think about you, like doing things, there were seasons and like when we were newly married that I'd have been like, no. I wouldn't have said no, but I would have had a really, really, really hard time. For sure. I would have been like so sad. But I was like, okay, bye.
I mean, you were pretty sad when I was leaving.
It's more just thinking of all the things I have to do. I also want to make sure I have to like
You didn't want to have to take out the trash and pick up
poop.
dog poop.
Well, and the day you left, there was the fattest lizard in the garage.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do I like get it out of the garage?
I keep telling her lizards are good.
Okay, I did not
keep the lizards around because they're
I'm not
going to
tell
eat
the
all
whole
the bugs
story
you don't
because
want.
I don't want, the people who are like.
I'm not going to tell the whole story either, but lizards are good. We have scorpions in Arizona. Lizards take care of that.
Chew it out of the garage. Yeah. Okay, but it was alive when it left the garage.
Yes.
It was no longer alive
when you came home.
But I didn't kill it.
I know you did.
I
believe
prayed
you.
to the Lord. I was like, Lord, please, that I cannot have that in my garage because it's just me and I don't want to have to just go stay at my parents the whole time.
Oh my gosh.
I know, it's a lot. Anyway.
But it was great.
Yeah, no,
it was great.
I know it's good for you, so that's why I'm like, you should go. And
honestly, wives, you really should encourage your guy to have moments like this. And like even with me, I have a group of guys that I meet with on Monday nights, and it's not every single Monday, but when we do get together, it's awesome. Yeah. It's such a good time for us to just have raw conversation, encourage each other, talk about life. Yeah. We kind of always go around the table just like, hey, give us a life update. What's going on? Yeah. How can we pray for you? And that kind of stuff has been monumental. And I would suggest if you don't have that, find that for yourself.
Well, and I noticed like when you do get to go do that, or even like the once a week thing or once every other week, or go on like this trip, it's really good for you because you used to spend so much time socializing, and you do spend less time now socializing outside of like your work.
It's a whole different world now.
I can tell when it's like Julian needs to go out in the real world and like see people.
Yes.
So it's good for you. And obviously, like, I'm in a healthy place right now. So I was like, yeah, go. And two, I know that if I would have been like, you cannot go, I really need you to stay home, you would. And so that's why I try to encourage you to go. Because I'm like, I know.
Well, I appreciate it.
And I mean, I'll admit this to you. I was talking to my friend on Sunday at church, and I was like, yeah, it's been pretty easy, whatever. I said, honestly, I mean, I just am such a princess when you're home that I'm actually not really like that. Like I am now.
Like you're fine when I'm not there.
We've been together for so long that I'm like, I don't have to take out the trash.
Yeah.
I don't make the coffee. You do that. Like I don't pick up the dog. Well, I do sometimes. I don't pick up the dog poop. Julian does that. I don't run to the grocery store. Julian does that. Drive. I just did all of it.
I don't fill up my gas. Julian does that.
And it's honestly, I'm good at it, and it's not hard for me. It's temporary. I know if it was all the time, it'd be very hard. And like, shout out to all the single moms and women who do it on their own. Like, I cannot even imagine, because after 3 or 4 days, I was like, okay, I'm tired. Like, it'd be nice if Dad is here so I can just like have a little bit of a break. But
and the first thing I did when I got home was take out the trash, pick up the poop.
Yes, for sure.
Do all the things. Okay,
so another thing I've been thinking about, and then I'll ask you this too. I feel like I just end up interviewing you most of the time days. Is like when it talks about, or the one you just remind me, it's from Jerry Maguire when he's talking and he's like, you complete me. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's a load of BS.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
What? Is that,
that's
what did I do?
That's a load of BS.
Like, and I think the problem
just crushing everyone's favorite movie.
I don't even really like that movie.
You complete me.
I don't even know if I've actually watched the whole movie from start to finish.
My gosh, we're gonna watch that tonight. Movie night.
You complete me. No. So here's the thing. I think that one of the problems with relationships is that we think that our spouse should complete us.
Yes.
Right. Mm-hmm. So I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking a lot about things.
Yeah, you had a lot of time to think when I was gone.
I guess let me go back to my notes so that it's not totally a pinball machine for everybody. But I was thinking like, okay, so if you're not meant to complete me, like what are you meant to do? Right? Because like, yes, you're intended for, relationship, and it's good, and we're, marriage is an incredible thing, like a gift from God. But if I put the expectation on you that you complete me, like I'm going to be severely disappointed.
Yep. Absolutely.
10 out of 10 times,
100%.
Right?
Yep.
Right? And absolutely. I think that a huge part of what has caused us to have more success the longer we've been married is realizing, like, I do love this person, but they're never going to fulfill every single thing in me because there's only one thing that can fulfill everything, and that's Jesus, right? And so I'm like, okay, so then what is the intention of marriage? Like, if you're not meant to complete me,
Yeah.
because again, that's a load of BS. I would never actually say that on the podcast, like the words, because that would be, I want your kids to be able to be in the room as much as possible, unless we're talking about sassy time.
Sassy time.
I don't want to get bleeped on the thing, because if I say the other words, I might like put the explicit. One time it like marked our podcast as explicit.
I know it,
because we said that. I mean, that makes,
we said sassy time.
You think you're funny.
I am.
Okay, so what is marriage intended for? You
well,
know?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a pretty easy answer, because you're 100% right. We are not made to complete each other. We are to complement each other. And so I'm going to bring out things inside of you that you may not have been able to bring out yourself, right? Mm-hmm. There's a level of confidence in certain things that I'm going to push inside of you that you're going to go, oh, wow, I can do this. I am beautiful. I am amazing.
I think that's amazing.
Am, because I'm going to compliment you in life. I'm going to help you in life, and same thing with you. You're my helper. You are my complimenter. You are the one who takes me to new levels. I'm a better man because of you. I'm not complete because of you, but I am a much better man because of you and what you've done for my life. And so your job in marriage is meant for complimenting each other and really pushing each other forward in everything that we do.
Yeah. Well, and like you said, like pulling out the good. And I think that in a beautiful marriage that's really striving to do what it's intended to do, that's what happens. But I think that takes humility too, because like you have to be like wanting me to succeed and wanting me to be my best self. You know what I mean? And I think what's like in complimenting, like we are meant to become the best version of ourselves, right? Like in life, we want to become the best version of ourselves. Yeah. But that means that the stuff in us that's not good has to get out.
Yes.
And marriage has a very uncanny way of revealing that, I think, more than anything else does.
Oh my gosh, it all comes out.
Right? Like your selfishness, your insecurity, your frustrations. And like the things that you were like, either I didn't even realize I was like that.
Exactly.
Or two, like I was able to hide this for a really long time because nobody got this close to me. And then you're married and you're like, I'm selfish. Yeah. Or whatever it is, like I'm selfish, or I'm kind of sassy, or I'm not very nice, or whatever it might be. Like, I mean, there could be a whole lot of things. Or I have this addiction, or I have this darkness in me that I didn't really know existed. Yeah. And then your spouse is there and you're like, well, here you go.
Here I am. Do you still love me?
You love me,
Well, and that's probably why so many marriages end really fast, because there's this front that we put on when we're dating, right? We put on our best version of ourselves, and we don't show the ugly most of the time. I would say most people dating do not show the ugly that's inside of you.
I mean, here's a tip I have: just accidentally fart on your boyfriend 2 weeks into dating, and basically you'll just know right then, like, will he be able to handle it?
Oh my gosh.
Just jump in his lap, just right there, and pretend like it was on purpose when Lord knows. So first of all, I was a liar, because 2 weeks into our relationship I farted, and then I was like, ah, ha, ha, ha. Humiliated, but played it off. Good acting, lying, farter.
Yep, farted and right on me 2 weeks into dating.
Just let him out.
I wasn't.
I'm so sorry. You were talking about something.
No, you're fine. She was like very embarrassed and was like, oh my gosh, and I was like, actually, is one of those things that made me like,
that's how I knew
she's gonna be my wife.
This is gonna work.
This is gonna be my wife, because that's the realest anyone's ever been with me. I've dated girls who like wouldn't eat food in front of me, and that was,
I literally asked her
for me, that was not
it. A burger for dinner.
Yeah, she's like, please make me a burger tonight. But that was so funny, because it really was the moment where I was like, I'm going to marry this girl. There are people in this world, and that's probably you, and if that's you, I'm not judging you. I'm just saying, I don't know how it's possible.
Oh my gosh.
But how in the world are you married for many years and have never farted in front of each other? And
I would blow up.
The amount of people I've heard say that, I'm like, are you kidding me? Dude, go fart in front of your wife and let her know.
I mean, to each their own, but man, I let them out all
anyways,
the time.
Just
not on the podcast.
Sidebar. Don't be afraid to fart.
Yes.
Show yourself.
Show yourself. Yeah.
Frozen.
Yeah. But I wrote down ultimate companionship.
Yeah.
Like your marriage is meant to be the most, I can't speak, but your closest friend.
Yes.
Your closest
Your best
companion.
friend. Yeah. Well, and that's why it's so important to not rush into things per se. Like be their friend, you know?
Yeah.
Do your very best to just be friends first, because if you can be friends, then you're going to have kids. And then after your kids leave, you're going to have to be friends again.
Yeah.
And you're going to get so used to having kids and people around. And then all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh no, I'm stuck with this person that I don't even like very much. Rather than that happening, let it be your best friend that you live life with, and work super hard to become that. Have fun together, enjoy life together, fart in front of each other, whatever it is, like that allows you to loosen up and just be best friends with your spouse. I'm telling you, your marriage will be 10 times better.
If you don't do that in front of your spouse, like I'm serious, like how, like would it bother you if you started doing that? Like, what's the reasoning? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
It's beyond me. I don't know. Put it in the comments.
I do. I need
Honestly,
to know.
put in the comments. Do you fart in front of your spouse? If you don't, why? What is causing you to not do that? I'm not, like I said, we're not judging. We're just very curious.
Hurts if you hold it.
I can't
like
hold it in. Sometimes it comes out and I don't even push. It just happens.
There's a lot behind that. We're not gonna unpack that. It's also, this is a hard turn. Spiritual development, because obviously, you know, listen, I'm a better wife because I press into Jesus, because there are days that I'm like, Lord, why do you give me this man? Like, and not so much these days, but like there were moments
when we first started,
I literally would be crying and be like, God, like how, like this is forever, and like, what am I gonna do? You know what I mean?
Yep.
That was really dramatic, but you know.
Yes, I do.
And I bet y'all know too.
I've heard the stories.
Yeah. Intimacy, obviously.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Which then
Into
oftentimes
me you see.
leads. Do not pull out the early 2000s pastor vibes.
It just happened.
Where you got to make every word into something. Into me.
Oh my gosh! Literally every single word saying can be turned into something. 100%.
Yeah.
My brother-in-law is the king of that.
Absolutely.
He's actually really good at it.
He's very good at it. Intimacy, which then often leads to procreating.
Yeah.
A helper, and an encourager.
Yeah.
And like you said, encouraging things that you don't see in yourself.
Yeah.
Yep. What do you feel like is something that you didn't see in yourself that I saw before you?
I was pretty I would say, what's the right word here? Not I had like a wall. I was afraid to be myself for a very long time.
Like insecure?
Like insecure, yeah. I was afraid to be who I felt like I really was, because I would put on a front of wanting to be cool or, impress and, be the best in the room. And, like there was, and it's, in fact, it's so funny. Your youth pastor called me out on that, and I was so mad. Like he looks at me and he pulls me aside and he goes, "You'll never lead worship in my youth ministry." And I'm like, "What? Why?" He goes, "'Cause you're arrogant." He told me that, and I'm like, "Are you kidding?" And I literally,
no one had ever really said that to you though, because
never ever told me that.
Oh,
and
snap.
it, like, I was mad. Like I was like, "How dare him?" And now I look back and I'm like, "Oh, thank God someone was bold enough to tell me the truth," because nobody really ever did. And he called me out and did not care. He could care less. And I'm grateful. I was so mad in that moment, and it took years of, almost bitterness. And now I'm like so grateful. Like
almost bitterness.
Literally,
shout
because
out to him though. Because
shout out.
Literally, then
Yeah.
Would you still be arrogant if he didn't say that?
Probably.
You never know. So you were insecure.
Super insecure. Yep. And couldn't be myself. And you brought this sense of security out of me, where I'm literally, and a lot of people say, there's no way you don't care what people think. Of course I care what people think. Like that's, I think it's
to a certain
level. Yeah, to a
yes.
certain extent. Of course I do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm not really concerned if you like me or not anymore. Like that's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be myself, who I am naturally, and let's be honest, I'm a nerd. I was a closet nerd. You should see my office. I got lightsabers all over the place. And
it's the reason I won't put the office downstairs.
But it's fine.
I was like, I do not need all this stuff, but I love it. I love it.
And I was afraid to like those things and live out those things because I just didn't think it was, people would make fun of me and I wasn't cool.
So
and you made me secure. You brought out security in who I am as a person. And
I let your nerd flag fly, baby. Because I'm actually very nerdy.
Yeah, you are.
But like no one knows.
Yeah.
Or they do, but they just are
They haven't
surprised.
experienced it. Yes. A few people have really experienced it though.
Yeah.
Nicole.
Shout out
Nicole. She's experienced it.
Yeah. Anyway, I think, now that we know, obviously, that I have ADHD, I mean, probably the whole world knew before I did, but
for sure.
Now I'm like, I've always been more just like quirky.
Yeah.
Like I just am. And I actually now feel like I embrace it a little bit more. Like that's just who I am.
Yeah.
But
Well, what have I brought out in you?
Oh, that's a lot. I mean,
you've brought out everything.
Ooh. There's so many different things, so I'm going to try to find just one. I'm going to just list some, I think. You've helped me become more authentic, I think, because the more we both did, the more I was just like, I can be nerdy, I can be honest, I can say silly things or jokes or sing songs and dance. I mean, our house is pretty much a musical.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
Think
at
high
all
school
times.
Musical all the time. Like
all the
we're
time.
just always singing, all of us, all four of us, singing and dancing and laughing and having fun. And sharing. Like I'm very insecure about being honest about things sometimes and letting people
What's funny because
really see me. I know.
Because that was me and you brought it out of me.
I know, and then you put it
and now I'm
me.
putting it back on you.
Kidding.
Yeah.
No, I think that I am really good at playing whatever part I need to play. Mm-hmm. Which is honestly a good skill to have. But also, then you feel like you're not even really yourself sometimes because you're like, well, that's not really who I am. And if they saw who I really was, they'd be like, whoa. And they probably are sometimes. But you just kind of help me know like, okay, well, then those aren't your people.
Yeah.
Like if
you can't be yourself.
Yeah, if you can't be yourself, then those aren't really your people.
Yeah. I think one thing that I brought out of you
tell me.
is your strength to stand up for yourself and for the truth.
Yeah.
And
I mean, I've always been a lot like that.
Yeah, but like next level. Like there were times where we'd be in a meeting and as soon as Brittany would start to speak, everyone would go, uh-oh, because she would only speak when it meant something. She didn't want to speak
out of
just
turn or
she didn't want to speak just to talk, right? She didn't want to do it just to do it. She would only speak when it was a very big deal and everyone knew it.
Yeah.
And I feel like throughout our and I think it has a lot to do with my poor decisions that you didn't speak up in, that now you're like, I'm never not speaking up again.
Oh, man.
I will always say
what I think.
I think, and you're going to listen.
But I do think back to some of those conversations that I was bold in, and they kind of make me laugh now.
Yeah,
because
true.
I mean, some people said some pretty like awful things to me, and I would stick up for myself, and
and I was always uncomfortable.
Like my wife is the one who's gonna speak like that to a male authority.
Oh my god.
Yeah, if the Lord says I need to, then I guess I'll do it. Stick up. But I think ultimately you just call out my best self, like when I'm doubting myself. And so really the whole point of this conversation, that we circle back to this part is that marriage that's really operating the way it should is pulling out the good in the other person.
Yeah.
And then when the not so good comes out, it's helping that person unpack that and navigate it in a loving, gentle, sometimes more intense, like, hey, we're going to really work through this, and not being terrified of it, because there are times where like both of us have walked through stuff that it was kind of terrifying, but not backing down from it, but maybe, kind of this beautiful thought to me too was like, your spouse is like gets to have an opportunity to really like step up for you when you can't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And believe for you and intercede for you and really like go to bat for you, when maybe you can't yourself.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So real.
I do have more, hold on.
Show me what else.
Texted me, so they ruined my notes.
Show me what other ADHD you have.
Well, I feel like it could end up being a little too long, but I'm gonna.
Okay.
But there's something you brought up to me,
Okay.
so I wanted to bring it up so you could talk about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. So you said that you had been thinking a lot about, because you have a lot of conversations, especially lately, with men about
Yeah.
marriage.
Yeah.
And how, like just being able to encourage other men, and focusing, like give me your perspective that you had.
Yeah, it's basically the 80-20 rule. Like in marriage and in life in general, but we're talking about marriage specifically. 80% of your wife or your husband, you probably love a lot, right? There's things about your spouse that you're looking at them and you're like, man, 80% of who you are as a person, as a spouse, is amazing, and I
I'm
love it.
low-key offended that it's only 80, but it's
No,
okay.
but listen,
I know.
it's
Keep
I'm
going.
just
I know.
I'm just going
I-
average,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But 80% of the things, you're an amazing mom, you're an amazing wife, caretaker.
Yeah.
Like I can name so many things. I can name so many more things that it
Right.
could ever negative, right? But so many times in marriage, when they fall apart and people fall apart from each other, it's because they're focusing on the other 20% that may not be their favorite thing about their spouse.
Yeah.
I.e., me leaving underwear on the ground. Like imagine if you divorced me over leaving my dirty underwear next to the hamper, right? Like it happened many times. What I did was throw it and I missed and I just left it, right?
That's not true, but okay.
But it would happen, and that's something that's like the annoying thing about your spouse, that you might go, oh man, like that's just so annoying. And we as a humanity, for some reason, we focus on the negative so much faster and so much more than we do on the positive, because the positive feels good, but the negative always feels like it outweighs. But an 80-20 split, like there's no comparison when it comes to the weight of what it is. But so many marriages end in infidelity, and they end because they're fighting. They end because, they just don't see the things on the same page because of that 20%.
Yeah.
And I want to do everything that I can to focus heavily on the good rather than the bad. Now, when I say the bad, I'm not talking like you're cheating on me, right? That's totally different.
Right.
Not at all. I'm
Like you're saying
talking
those
I'm talking about those
things,
petty things that, like, maybe your spouse doesn't help with the dishes ever, like stuff like that. That's just honestly, like, yeah, it's annoying and they're not helpful and you could be frustrated, but at the same time, that's something that if you would just learn how to communicate well and, have those conversations, you would be able to fix that 20%, but instead we don't say anything because we're afraid of how they'll react or what's going on. And we focus heavily on that 20% that allows us to completely lose our love and our relationship with our spouse and move on.
Yeah. No, I thought two things while you were talking about that is that we focus so much, obviously, oftentimes on the 20%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then if we go chase what we feel like we're missing, and then we loot, like if you...
Oh my gosh,
then,
yes.
I thought this was a great perspective you pointed out too, is oftentimes we get so caught up in the 20%, we go look for it somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
Or we think, oh, well, this person will give me the 20%. And we've become so like consumed with not having that. But then we get that, right? We're like, oh, here, they're fulfilling this 20%. And then we look back and go, oh no, like I loved so much of this and now I'm going to lose that because I was so focused on this.
Yeah.
Right?
Just
Is that
focused
kind
on
of what you...
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it.
And if we don't communicate and we don't, like maybe the dishes are a big deal to you and you're like, I need more help. But if you don't communicate, then the 20% becomes 25%. Then it becomes 30%. And soon you're starting to lose sight of like the good because you're just almost...
It's growing.
Yeah. You know what I mean?
It's
and
like,
it's festering.
It's like
and
fungus. It just keeps going.
Okay, thank you so much for that. That was gross.
You're welcome.
And I was thinking about this too, because like really that's what we're called to do, is focus on the good.
Yeah.
What's pure, what's holy, what's right, what's righteous, what's great about your spouse. And right now you might be like, oh, I'm having a hard time thinking of 80%. You know what I mean? But take a moment, like sit down, and if you have to write it down.
Seriously, write it down.
Absolutely. Recall the things, like be grateful for those things. And then, pray for the 20% things. Like, these are the things that are really bothering me and they're really hard for me. Like, how can I approach these? Or how can I stop being so consumed by the things my spouse doesn't do?
Yeah.
And this, we're not talking like, okay, the 20% is I'm just going to put up with my husband being disrespectful to me.
Not at all.
Or my wife, stepping out on our marriage. Like those things aren't 20%. Those are like those are different, right? We're talking about my husband always throws his stuff right there at the door, or he didn't, clean this up, or like the smaller,
for sure,
but that feel big sometimes. You know what I mean? And I know this sounds crazy, but now when like the 20%, if you want to call it that, I don't know if I would give it a ratio in our marriage, but
generally
like,
speaking,
now I sometimes almost laugh about those things. Like, oh my gosh, Julian forgot to do this. Like, okay, our coffee maker.
Yeah.
The fact that the thing hasn't lit on fire, because he'll turn it on for like the morning, but forget to put water in it. And I'm like, does this not, so I'll go downstairs and it'll smell like something. And then I'm like, I could get super focused on the coffee maker and just get frustrated.
Yeah.
Rather than the positive,
So true.
That's easy to do. It's our human nature is negativity, I feel like.
Yeah. Yeah. And the biggest issue with it all is we focus on that percentage, right? Like the smaller percentage of the things that bother us, when it literally would just take a simple conversation to fix it most of the time. Like,
that's
hey,
a big thing too.
Let's communicate. So like we've talked about this a lot, but when we go on our walk and talks, we just talk.
Yeah.
And we do a check-in and you have to be unoffendable though. You have to be in a place where you can go, all right, let's have our undefendable walk and talk. And when you do that, you're able to bring up stuff, and not in a, well, I wish you would do this. And then, or that, but just having an honest, real conversation and say, I would pose the question like, hey, is there anything that I should be thinking about that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing? Like that's bothering you? Like, let's just have that conversation. And then you're able to talk about it and work on it, and then say, okay, I'm going to work on that.
Yeah. A few things too, and then wrap it up, because I got some mom duties. But I love how you have said the last few times you've talked to me about like, hey, I've had this conversation. You have encouraged men to step up and like ask the questions of their wives. How can I serve you?
Yeah.
Where am I maybe like dropping the ball?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times it's like that. I mean, I'm the wife, and so of course I love the idea of you stepping in but the wives are craving that oftentimes.
For sure.
And so I love that you're like, hey, have you even expressed your that you're expecting that, or that you would want that, or like, have you asked your wife like what you could do to serve her, how you could love her? And so often the answer is no.
Yeah, I mean,
and
pretty
so
much
it's like
every time.
just asking that question, and wives can ask that question too, like, hey, how can I serve you? How can I love you? And we talk a lot about that, and so I love that it's not like making an excuse. It's like, how can I do this for you? So a few things just to wrap up the pinball machine of my brain. Number one thing is really thinking about like reminding yourself of what is the purpose of your marriage. You know what I mean? And are you expecting your spouse to complete you? And are you maybe then putting such a high expectation on your marriage that it's actually the weight of it is crushing your marriage? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like the intentions of it. And then, the 80-20. Like, what are the things about your spouse that you love and that you can really focus on?
Yeah.
And can you start to maybe like I don't want to say like let go, but stop focusing so much on the things that are hard for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Anything else you want to add?
No, that was it. That was great.
Thanks.
So good.
Was it a pinball machine?
I mean, hey, listen, it was a good pinball machine, because the point of a pinball machine is to actually hit all the parts, and you get the more things you hit,
so you're saying
the more points you get. And then when it lands in the hole, you're game over. So I like the pinball machine, and I like your brain. So it's good job. Good job.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All the neurospicy wives are like, thank you so much. I don't even think it's necessarily only women with ADHD, because the day and age we live in,
I know
it's
guys
just in general, sometimes it just feels like,
for sure,
for sure. So thank you so much for encouraging my brain.
You're welcome.
I love you.
I love you too. Well, thank you guys so much for being here on Young, Dumb, and In Love. We're so grateful for every single one of you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. You hit that like button. Share it with all your friends. If you know anybody with a marriage that could use a little listening to this, just send it their way and let them know, hey, I know this great couple that could help you and talk with you and all that kind of jazz. Yes. But just send it their way, and we're so grateful once again. And we'll see you next week on Young, Dumb, and In Love.